A quorum being present, the committee will be in order. The committee is meeting today for consideration of H.R. 3965, the Providing Emotional Assistance with Relief and Love, or PEARL Act, H.R. 4070, the Tren de Agua Border Security Threat Assessment Act, H.R. 4071, the Combating International Drug Trafficking and Human Smuggling Partnership Act of 2025, H.R. 4057, the CBP Canine Home Kenneling Pilot Act, H.R. 4058, the Enhancing Stakeholder Support and Outreach for Preparedness Grants Act. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare the committee in recess at any point pursuant to Committee Rule 7C. Any requests for recorded votes may be postponed. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I look forward to today's markup. We have 5 bills under consideration today, of which all have broad bipartisan support and are the product of a lot of hard work and discussion between our staffs and our members. I'm proud to say that these bills reflect our shared commitment to improving the operations of DHS and promoting transparency. I commend my Republican colleagues, Representative Gonzalez, Knott, and Guest, for bringing forth important measures to strengthen DHS and safeguard the homeland. The PEARL Act initiates a pilot program in which CBP will adopt local shelter dogs and train them for support canine programs. This will benefit not only CBP's mission, but also the mental health of our brave frontline personnel. The Tren de Agua Border Security Threat Assessment Act requires DHS to conduct a threat assessment regarding the criminal threats posed by members of the violent transnational criminal organization, Tren de Agua. It also requires DHS to develop a strategic plan to counter the threats identified through its assessment. This legislation will be vital in helping to identify and mitigate transnational criminal threats. I will say I am deeply disappointed that we don't have some co-sponsors on that one, but we move on. This issue demands bipartisan unity, and I hope someone will consider and that the bill will be supported today. The Combating International Drug Trafficking and Human Smuggling Partnership Act amends the Homeland Security Act of 2002 to authorize officers and agents of air and marine operations to offer support to governments of foreign countries if an arrangement has been entered by the United States government. This is an important change that will improve our ability to work with foreign partners to stop human and drug trafficking at its source, and importantly, before these evils reach our borders and communities. I also want to thank our minority counterparts, Representatives Correa, for offering common sense legislation that would benefit CBP canine handlers and canines by establishing training and best practices, and Representative Goldman for his bill to improve stakeholder outreach engagement, education, technical assistance, and support prior to the awarding of grants. I strongly support all of the bills under consideration in today's markup, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. I now recognize the ranking member to make an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, the committee is considering 5 bills to improve the operations of the Department of Homeland Security. Representative Correa, the ranking member of the Border Security and Enforcement Subcommittee, leads H.R. 4057, the bipartisan CBP Canine Home Kenneling Pilot Act, which authorizes a pilot program for Customs and Border Protection's Office of Field Operations canine handlers to keep their service dogs with them at night and when off duty. CBP OFO is currently the only DHS component that does not permit officers to keep their working dogs at home kenneled. Home kenneling is better for dogs, better for canine handling, bonding, and better for DHS's bottom line, as it is more cost-effective than contracted kennels. I urge all my colleagues to join me in advancing H.R. 4057 today. Representative Goldman is a lead sponsor of H.R. 4058, the Enhancing Stakeholder Support and Outreach of Preparedness Grants Act, which was favorably reported by this committee last year by voice vote. H.R. 4058 directs the administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency to provide continuous engagement with stakeholders along the educational, material, and technical assistance for the State Homeland Security Program and the Urban Area Security Initiative, key grant programs administered by FEMA. The bill also requires the Government Accountability Office to submit a report to Congress on the effectiveness of FEMA's outreach and support efforts related to these grant programs. Our communities need the State Homeland Security Program and Urban Area Security Initiative, especially in light of the assassinations in Minnesota and the U.S. attack on Iran. Increased threats mean our first responders at home need more federal assistance. It is essential that these grant programs work well and deliver for our constituents. Before I yield back, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to note my disappointment that legislation to extend the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015 was not included in this markup, despite its fast approaching sunset on September 30th. CISA 2015 underpins essential information sharing activities between the government and private sector. Robust information sharing is important to our security every day, but even more so during times of elevated risk, like where we find ourselves today. The committee has heard from dozens of stakeholders at hearings and in writing that we must pass a clean extension of CISA 2015 as soon as possible. Mr. Chairman, I know the timing of your departure is uncertain, but I urge you to prioritize extending this critical legislation. And if this is our final committee activity together, I wish you well in whatever the future holds for you. With that, I yield back.
I thank the ranking member, and for as long as I'm here, I'll continue to work on getting that and that done. CISA is an important, has an important mission, and we will make sure that it happens by September 30th, whether it's me or somebody else. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for your kind words. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 3965, the Pearl Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and printed copies are available. The clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 3965, offered by Mr. Gonzalez, to establish in U.S. Customs and Border Protection a pilot program to adopt dogs from local animal shelters to be trained as support dogs and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and it is considered read and open to amendment at any time. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gonzalez, is recognized for 5 minutes on his measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased that the committee has convened today to mark up H.R. 3965, the Pearl Act. I thank my friend and colleague, Congressman Correa, for joining me as a co-lead. This bill would establish a 3-year pilot program to provide more support dogs like Pearl, U.S. Border Patrol's first therapy canine, by acquiring and training dogs through adoption at local animal shelters. We should never forget that CBP personnel have been fighting through a mental health crisis. There have been at least 150 deaths by suicide from 2007 to 2022. And in 2023, the DHS Office of IG found that CBP and ICE personnel felt overworked and unable to perform their primary law enforcement duties. It is clear that the past 4 years have been some of the most challenging and stressful for our men and women on the front lines. With that, we all know that dogs have a special effect in helping calm stress. This is part of what CBP is aiming to achieve with the Support Canine program, to bring support dogs to every Border Patrol sector to help facilitate conversations about some of the heavy issues that our frontline agents have to process. I commend CBP's broader efforts to address low morale and mental health of our Border Patrol agents. My legislation would help expand this successful program while providing second opportunities for our many canines at local animal shelters. I thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who have signed on to support this bipartisan bill. Thank you, Chairman, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Does anyone else wish to speak on this bill? Mr. Correa, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleague, Mr. Gonzalez, for this legislation, the Pearl Act. As a ranking member on the subcommittee, Border Security Subcommittee, I visited the border many times, both borders, and I've heard our federal workers loud and clear. Forced overtime, single parents, stress, stress, stress. We need to invest in common sense initiatives to support mental health and resilience of our federal workforce. That's why I'm a strong supporter of this legislation, and I ask all of you to also vote for this measure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield.
Gentleman yields. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this measure? Are there any amendments to the bill? Hearing none, the question is on reporting the bill favorably to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4070, the Tren de Agua Border Security Threat Assessment Act. The bill was circulated in advance and printed copies are available. The clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 4070, offered by Mr. Knott, to require a Homeland Security border threat assessment on Tren de Aragua and associated strategic plan, and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and it's considered read and open to amendment at any time. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Knott, is recognized for 5 minutes on his measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In recent years, we have seen what was once unimaginable become an everyday reality in this country. International violent criminals attacking law enforcement officers, the same criminals brazenly taking over neighborhoods and complexes and moving drugs, firearms, and human captives throughout the United States at will. Open border policies have enabled this reality to take root, to grow, and to mature. And few criminal terrorist organizations have exploited this reality more proficiently than the group known as Tren de Aragua, or TDA. Tren de Aragua, a once isolated Venezuelan prison gang, has expanded its reach throughout the Western Hemisphere and is wreaking havoc right here in American communities all over the country. Since fiscal year 2021, nearly 1 million Venezuelans have been encountered by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection nationwide, and over 120,000 Venezuelans were flown into the United States under the previous administration's parole program. TDA specifically exploited the Biden-era parole programs and lax border security policies to infiltrate our country and to destabilize our communities via a barrage of criminal activity. These activities include, but are not limited to, kidnapping, human and sex trafficking, smuggling, and distribution of dangerous drugs like synthetic opioids, money laundering, organized retail crime, and the violent extortion of community members and small business owners. Thankfully, President Trump adeptly recognized the threat that this criminal organization poses and swiftly issued an executive order numbering 14157 on January 20th, 2025, which appropriately designated TDA as a foreign terrorist organization. Despite this designation, much work is still needed. Armed TDA members continue to wreak havoc on residential communities, and they target our law enforcement professionals actively. Just a few days ago, a suspected TDA member who was illegally in the United States attempted to murder federal law enforcement officers during a traffic stop in Nebraska. In my home state of North Carolina, recent reporting by the Carolina Journal illustrates the surging numbers of TDA members who are being encountered and arrested by law enforcement who are in possession of firearms and involved in crimes such as homicide, kidnapping, extortion, human trafficking, and drug trafficking. TDA's presence and expansion into the United States is growing every day. Due to the number of illegal entrants who are already present, it is impossible to know who is in this country and why they are in the country. This enables sophisticated groups like TDA to put down roots to strategically grow and to proficiently metastasize into a force multiplier for crime, death, and destruction. Because of their size, paired with the sophisticated tactics that range from encrypted communications to counter-surveillance networks, this bill is needed in an urgent way. TDA has ballooned into a national problem, and we need to respond accordingly. This legislation would require the Department of Homeland Security to conduct a comprehensive border threat assessment that would identify the criminal threats posed by TDA members and their criminal subsets who have entered our country, and the threat, importantly, posed by TDA members who are actively seeking to enter the country. This legislation further mandates that DHS develop a strategic plan using all levels of existing law enforcement to mitigate the threats and to prevent TDA from continuing to proliferate into this country. Law enforcement and their intelligence counterparts need to employ a unified and focused strategy, one that recognizes the constantly evolving tactics of this organization. It is far past time that we shift from a posture of weakness and defense to one of strength and offense when it relates to this particular organization. I want to thank my Republican colleagues on this committee for partnering with me to introduce this important legislation. And while I am disappointed that no one on the other side of the aisle signed on as a sponsor to this legislation, I look forward to hopefully securing your support as this bill leaves the committee and hopefully goes to the Senate and then to the White House. Let's send a clear message today that the United States will not be a safe harbor for violent foreign terrorist organizations like TDA. I urge all of my colleagues to join me in supporting this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Does anyone wish to speak on the bill? Mr. Higgins, you're recognized.
I support the gentleman's bill, and I appreciate him bringing it. Just a personal point here. In my younger years, I spent many years immersed in the culture of the Venezuelan people. Spent a lot of time there as a young adult. Always traveled legally, of course, on a travel visa that generally was 30 days. And we had to be careful to schedule a return to the United States to make sure, planes were not that reliable as for, the scheduling, but you had to be sure to be out of the country before your visa expired. And in the course of those conversations with my people and my family in Venezuela, the prison system of Venezuela and Caracas was pointed out. And this was before TDA. This is in the 80s, man. Things were still relatively cool in Venezuela. It hadn't descended into the darkness that you got there right now. So TDA hadn't been born yet. But there was already a particular sense of dread in the prison system there. Like, you did not want to end up in that prison system. And no telling what horrors were happening in there and what may be born of that system. It's fascinating to me, and I appreciate the gentleman's introduction to this bill and the bipartisan support, because it's fascinating that such an entity could be born, so far away yet so close, and have come into the bosom of our country. And so it's an appropriate response, and I just wanted to take a moment of personal privilege to support the bill. I yield.
Gentleman yields. Would anyone else wish to speak on the
Chairman.
bill? Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Chairman, Ranking Member. I wanted to speak against the bill. I want to be honest about the bill that we're discussing here. This isn't about Tren de Aragua. This is about continuing to equip Trump with tools to execute his anti-immigrant agenda. That's unfortunately what this bill is actually going to do. Tren de Aragua has become a dog whistle to justify every racist, xenophobic action this administration wants to take, particularly against Latino men. You want to disappear a bunch of people, say that they're affiliated with Tren de Aragua. You want Americans to surrender their rights, fear-monger them, and tell them that Tren de Aragua is operating a cell in their neighborhood. Every individual residing in the United States is entitled to certain constitutional protections, including due process and freedom from racial discrimination. However, let's be clear, for Latinos in the US today, racial profiling and a lack of due process have become certainties under this administration. And we know that the label of Tren de Aragua has been used to violate the rights of US residents. We've seen it play out when DHS has wrongfully detained and deported immigrants and asylum seekers, all based on an arbitrary point system. DHS created. Mother Jones reported that in DHS, Alien Enemy Validation Guide, which means having a tattoo, accounted for 4 points out of the 8 needed to be deemed deportable. The Trump administration has already demonstrated they're comfortable enabling racial discrimination of Latino residents under the guise of national security and protection. So it should come as no surprise that I'm going to have very serious concerns about policies like this one being considered today that could further enable these illegal and malicious practices. While, let me be clear, I concur that strategic plans and threat assessments could provide valuable insight for congressional oversight, folks, we just can't ignore that the DHS and administration have proven to be completely untrustworthy and downright hostile to oversight, accountability, and compliance with the rule of law. Trust me, we've gone to the holding centers where we've been told, just send an email, we can't let you in to see what's happening in here. Therefore, I gotta tell you that we cannot entrust them with additional tools with which they can violate our rights. For Trump and Noam, today's assessment is tomorrow's anti-immigrant deportation tool. I can't and will not vote to advance this legislation that may further harm our immigrant communities who are literally in this moment. Doesn't matter if they're in Chicago, Florida, Georgia, Pikeville, Kentucky. They are living in fear by what this administration is doing to them. I urge my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields. The chair recognizes Mr. Jimenez for 5 minutes. Comment on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the legislation. I come from South Florida, Miami. We have a large Venezuelan community. Let me make very clear, not all Venezuelans are members of Tren de Aragua, but all members of Tren de Aragua come from Venezuela. And so I have absolutely no problem in giving DHS a task to do a threat assessment and then develop the tactics necessary in order to deal with Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua, in my community, a couple of Tren de Aragua members actually abducted a former police officer from Venezuela, tortured, killed him, raided the home. And so I'm sure that my Venezuelan friends, and I have many of them in Miami, have absolutely no problem in assessing a threat and then dealing with the threat of Tren de Aragua, not only in my community, but around the United States. Because actually, Tren de Aragua has given the Venezuelans a bad name, all right?
That's right.
And so I just want to make sure that we get rid of them and not confuse them with the vast majority of Venezuelans, which are good, hardworking people. Yep. Many of them, like I said, are in my community, are part of our community. And I've made many statements about how we need to protect those that are hardworking and want to live out the American dream. But Tren de Aragua is not that. And so the faster that we identify them and we get rid of them, the better we're going to be in my community and around the United States. And I fully support this legislation. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. Would anyone else wish to speak on the bill? Mr. Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, of course, to the ranking member, and thank you also to Mr. Knott for leading this important effort. I am a Latino man, and I'm a proud original co-sponsor of the Tren de Aragua Border Security Threat Assessment Act because Tren de Aragua is an evil organization that has come to America to do harm and to commit brutal crimes. I don't have to explain that to families or businesses in my home state. Because Tren de Aragua took advantage of the open border policies and Colorado's sanctuary state policies, it's established its U.S. headquarters in the Denver, Colorado area. And my neighbors have experienced firsthand the terror and destruction that Tren de Aragua inflicts on our cities and our communities, from proliferating illegal drugs like fentanyl or 2C in our streets, to human trafficking, to overtaking apartment complexes in the Denver metro area. TDA poses a direct threat to public safety and to national security. And again, I know that firsthand, not just as a Latino man, but as a police officer in the Denver metro area for over 10 years. And I'd like to echo my colleagues' comments. Venezuelans who came to the United States to work hard to raise their families here in peace and safety, to experience the same American dream that my family, the Chavez family, experienced when they came to the United States, they need us to combat this dangerous threat. Our law enforcement officials who face these dangerous situations every day on the streets need us to combat this threat. Our future generations who want a safer Colorado need us to combat this threat. Latinos need us to combat this threat. And this bill accomplishes just that by collaborating with the Department of Homeland Security on a strategic plan to counter Tren de Aragua's transnational operations before more lives are put at risk. So on behalf of my constituents and all Coloradans and Americans who have been victims of Tren de Aragua's violence, I urge all members of this committee to support the bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Does anyone else wish to speak on the bill? Are there any amendments to the bill? Hearing none, the question is on reporting the bill favorably to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4071, the Combating International Drug Trafficking and Human Smuggling Partnership Act of 2025. The bill was circulated in advance, and printed copies are available. The clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 4071, offered by Mr. Guest, to amend the Homeland Security Act of 2002 to enhance the operations of U.S. Customs and Border Protection in foreign countries and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and it is considered read and open to amendment at any time. The gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest, is recognized for 5 minutes on his measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased that the Combating International Drug Trafficking and Human Smuggling Partnership Act of 2025 is on today's agenda. Customs and Border Protection's Air and Marine Operations, commonly known as AMO, they play a critical role in safeguarding the United States. AMO conducts extended border operations to detect and disrupt the illegal flow of immigrants, drugs, and contraband well before it reaches the shores of the United States. Last year, AMO enforcement actions resulted in the arrest of more than 1,000 individuals, the apprehension of 48,000 illegal aliens. Additionally, they seized and disrupted their delivery of more than 240,000 pounds of cocaine and over 1,500 weapons. AMO partners with foreign governments in the Western Hemisphere to combat trafficking and conduct humanitarian and law enforcement missions. As transnational criminal organizations extend their reach, the United States must be ready to meet this challenge and partner with countries to interdict illicit persons and goods prior to their arrival in the United States. This legislation authorizes AMO to partner with other nations and will allow AMO and other designated CBP personnel to continue these successful bilateral agreements with partner nations to provide training, increase capacity, and conduct joint operations to facilitate the apprehension of human smugglers and drug smugglers. Air and Marine operation partnerships enhance operational capabilities and coordinate efforts, making the region more secure and making the American people safer. I would like to thank Representative Poe for joining me on this legislation, and I urge all my colleagues to support this bipartisan legislation. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. I now recognize Ms. Poe for her comments, 5-minute comments on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to our ranking member, Thompson. And a very special thank you to Congressman Guest for spearheading this very important piece of legislation. Criminal cartels and foreign terrorists use vast international networks to smuggle drugs and traffic people. These illicit activities destroy communities and impose unspeakable trauma on the victims. They are a serious risk to American public and to our national security. Before I came to Congress, I led efforts in our state legislature to crack down on human trafficking and drug smuggling. I helped lead and enact bipartisan bills to expand penalties for human trafficking and create awareness campaigns to better inform the public on how to identify and assist victims of these horrific crimes. The proposal our committee considers today continues this work at the federal level, and I am proud to serve as co-lead. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Air and Marine Operations, or AMO, serves as a critical tool to combat drug smuggling and human trafficking. In fiscal year 2024 alone, AMO efforts led to the seizures of over 240,000 pounds of illegal drugs. Just this May, the CBP responded to an overturned boat driven by traffickers that killed a 14-year-old boy and his 10-year-old sister. The resources available to criminal and terrorist organizations are nearly limitless. That is why AMO has increased its focus on partnership with allied government to conduct joint operations to go after the threat on their own. They also conduct critical humanitarian mission to help our partners when disasters like hurricane strikes. These efforts not only stabilize our region, but they keep drug and smugglers from ever reaching our shores. While Congress, through an annual appropriation process, has clarified that AMO activities in foreign countries can be conducted, the legislation we are considering this morning will provide certainty to our partners through a more enduring authorization. I urge all my colleagues to advance our bipartisan effort to combat human and drug smuggling today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. Does anyone else wish to speak on the bill? Are there any amendments to the bill? Hearing none, the question is on reporting the bill favorably to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4057, the CBP K-9 Home Kenneling Pilot Act. The bill was circulated in advance and printed copies are available. The clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 4057, offered by Mr. Correa, to establish a pilot program on home kenneling of canines for U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Office of Field Operations and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and it's considered read and open to amendment at any point. The gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank Representatives McGyver, Representative Luttrell, Representative Gonzalez for helping me in this initiative. It's a common sense initiative that requires CBP field operations to establish a canine home kenneling pilot program to assess whether home kenneling would benefit CBP's operations, along with the well-being of both the handler and the canine partners. The pilot program would last 2 to 3 years and take place across 10 ports or more, 10 ports of entry or more, including land, border crossing, seaports, and airports. As many of you are aware, CBP's Office of Field Operations is the only law enforcement agency within DHS that does not currently allow its officers to home kennel their working dogs. And in fact, across the country, most local police departments home kennel their dogs, meaning the handler takes the dog home every night, and they're essentially a partnership, they're a family. These dogs, along with their handler, work side by side 24 hours a day on a daily basis. And that's part of the training, the health, and well-being of both the dog and the handler. And a healthy dog means job performance will be better, which means they'll be able to detect fentanyl or cocaine hidden in a vehicle with much more efficiency than not. And my bill simply instructs CBP to develop policies for home kenneling and test whether it works for their group or not. I urge my colleagues to support this measure. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields. Would anyone else wish to speak on the bill? Mr. Luttrell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Thompson, for bringing the CBP Canine Home Kennelling Pilot Act before the committee today, and my colleague Congressman Correa. Outstanding job running point on this. I'm proud to support this common sense pilot program that puts the well-being of Customs and Border Protection highly trained canines and their handlers front and center. These dogs are a critical partner in securing our borders, detecting threats, and keeping our communities safe. Their health and morale directly impacts their performance, and this legislation recognizes that by exploring a new approach to their care through home kenneling is absolute. This pilot program will be implemented at a minimum of 10 ports of entry spanning seaports, airports, and land crossings in both urban and rural settings. This wide scope ensures that we understand how home kenneling could work in different environments. Additionally, participation is voluntary, and handlers will receive comprehensive training to care for these canine partners, properly ensuring the highest standards of welfare and operational readiness. Within the first year, CBP will provide Congress with a progress reporting allowing for oversight and adjustments if needed. At the program's conclusion, a final report will assess the cost and benefits of home kenneling versus the current centralized kenneling model and offer recommendations on the future of this initiative. This approach balances innovation and accountability, providing the data and oversight needed to make informed decisions that strengthen CB frontline capabilities. We are investing in the health of these teams, both human and canine. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Would anyone else wish to speak on the measure? Mr. Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and to the bill sponsors. Again, I was a cop for over 10 years, supervised canines, and I just can't thank you enough for bringing this bill. I saw it, it works, it makes sense, it builds the bond, it builds the loyalty. I watched these dogs and their handlers in action, and an incredibly important bill, and again, just wanted to thank the sponsors for it. I will be in strong support. Yield back.
Gentleman yields. Anyone else wish to speak on the bill?
Chairman.
Mr. Gonzalez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to be able to partner with my friend, Congressman Correa, on yet another canine bill, and I thank him for his leadership on this bipartisan CBP Canine Home Kenneling Pilot Act. I represent over 800 miles of the southern border. One thing is clear, the CBP's canine teams are essential to our border security. These canines aren't just tools, they're trusted partners that help detect narcotics, weapons, human smuggling, and other threats to our port of entry. We ask a lot of our canine teams. This bill addresses a question this committee has a duty and an obligation to. How can we better support the CBP mission, the people, and the canines who carry it out? I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation. Thank you, Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Would anyone else wish to speak on the measure? Are there any amendments to the bill? Hearing none, the question is on reporting the bill favorably to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to notice, I now call up H.R. 4058, the Enhancing Stakeholder Support Outreach for Preparedness Grants Act. The bill was circulated in advance, and printed copies are available. The clerk shall designate the bill.
H.R. 4058, offered by Mr. Goldman, to amend the Homeland Security Act of 2002 to enhance outreach for the Urban Area Security Initiative and the State Homeland Security Grant Program of the Department of Homeland Security, and for other purposes.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and it's considered read and open to amendment at any time. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman, is recognized for 5 minutes on his measure.
Chairman, give me one moment, please. Mr. Chairman, I'm proud to introduce this bill that would coordinate between FEMA and many of the local and state agencies that receive grants from these critical programs. This is something that has come to our attention on a number of occasions where the coordination is lacking. And these, these grant programs are critical programs for communities that need to recover from natural disasters and other devastating events. And I'm proud to be able to introduce this bill that will ultimately make these grant programs far more efficient, far more successful, and far more effective. And I thank the committee and the chairman for taking this up. It's a common sense bill that I think gets to everyone's desire to make our government more efficient and more effective. And I thank the chairman. Yield back.
Gentleman yields. Would anyone wish to speak on the bill? I'm going to say a few words real quickly on it. You know, as I understand the intent of this bill, it is to help people understand the availability of grants, really. I mean, the target on the wall is getting the word out. And I found as a congressman very early on that helping my local communities understand what grants are available and then tap into those resources was often a challenge. So I actually hired a grant writer on my field staff back home, and we brought that individual up here, trained them on the grants that are available, and that individual has helped me serve my constituents very well. So I like the concept of this. I think informing communities of what is available is very important. And so if it's okay with Mr. Goldman, I'll sign on as a co-sponsor of the bill.
I would appreciate that very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So team put me down as a co-sponsor, and I yield. Would anyone else wish to comment on this bill? Are there any amendments to the bill? Hearing none, the question is on reporting the bill favorably to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is agreed to. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. I now recognize the ranking member for any closing statement that he'd have.
I don't have a closing statement, Mr. Chair, but I do want to acknowledge the bills that we've passed. As you said, they're common sense bills. They make sense, and I just look forward to the complete passage and on the bills to the floor. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Higgins, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, request unanimous consent to enter into the record House Resolution 539 that was introduced to the House Clerk yesterday, censuring Representative LaMonica McIver and removing her from the Committee on Homeland Security. For the record, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields. The ranking member is recognized.
Reserving the right to object.
Gentleman reserves the right to object. Would anyone else? We have a motion before us to enter into the record a resolution that was put onto the floor of the House yesterday, given to the clerk yesterday. We have a reservation.
I want to be heard on the reservation.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, obviously, we all understand that you're a nation of laws. Ms. McIver is innocent until proven guilty. And for no other reason, let her have her day in court and not come up with some kangaroo rule to kick her off the committee before she has her day in court. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Would anyone else wish to be heard on the motion to place into the record the resolution?
I would, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, just to build on what the ranking member said, as I understand it, Ms. McIver is criminally charged for impeding and obstructing an arrest of another individual, the mayor of Newark, whose case was then immediately dismissed and resulting in the prosecutor, the same prosecutor, being harshly admonished and perhaps, to use Mr. Higgins' term, censured for using the power of our criminal laws and our criminal enforcement system for political purposes. It was an arrest that even the prosecutor admits was wrong. And now that same prosecutor is charging Ms. McIver wrongly, I think, based on the facts and the video, but that will be borne out in a court of law, with impeding essentially a false arrest. And it's pretty remarkable even that we would have a censure resolution in this body based on the facts of this case, not to mention in addition to what the ranking member said about innocent until proven guilty. And I would caution my Republican colleagues not to jump so quickly and so aggressively on top of this issue, because the concept of innocent until proven guilty is one that my Republican colleagues, including our president, have relied on very heavily over the last couple of years. And it is the height of hypocrisy to resort to innocent until proven guilty when it's somebody in your own party, and then ignore it when it relates to somebody in another party. The politicization of our criminal justice system is a danger to all of us, and if my Republican colleagues do not realize it now, they will realize it in the future. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized to speak on the objection to the unanimous consent request to my resolution.
There is no objection filed yet. It's just been
Oh, I'm
commented.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I thought the ranking member had.
He reserved. He didn't.
So can I speak on this debate? I'm asking.
I
to
think
rec-
you yielded your time earlier. Someone else can, Mr.
did.
Gaster,
Well, I asked
recognize.
you-
I'd
Unanimous
like to
consent.
recognize, and I would yield my time to the gentleman.
Gentleman yields to you, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, and I thank the gentleman. In no way does the entering into the record of a bill that has been properly drafted and filed with the House Clerk, in no way does that, entering that into the record of the committee that has jurisdictional authority in that arena wherein the incident took place and an investigation was conducted. This is in the DHS arena where this committee has direct oversight authority and responsibility. In no way does entering my resolution calling for censure and removal of Representative McIver, removal from this committee alone, if you look at the resolution, and her censure, in no way does it inhibit her defense, nor my vigorous support of her right to be recognized as innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The threshold for removal from committee has long been indictment. It's in the ethics rules and is recommended that it clearly states that a member should recuse themselves, withdraw themselves from all committee activity if they have been indicted for a federal crime. So I waited until, I did not quickly move I stayed to my colleague and friend, Mr. Goldman. We did not move quickly at all. I waited until the 11th hour to file a very respectfully drafted and properly drafted resolution and file this at the end of the day yesterday. Why? Because we had this markup today. And I object from a constitutional perspective. I object to Ms. McIver's involvement in and participation in committee activity in an arena where she's facing federal indictment, and she has a right to defend herself. And I would expect that she would. I would oppose expulsion, for instance. Why? She hasn't been convicted. That threshold has not been crossed. I would vote no on an expulsion endeavor that was brought to the floor. But censure is appropriate. Historically, it's well in line with what has happened. And generally, by this point, a member removes themselves from their committee involvement, certainly from a committee that has direct oversight in the arena wherein the charges are to be prosecuted and no doubt vigorously defended.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I'm happy to yield to my colleague.
Did the gentleman make these same objections when former Representative Matt Gaetz was very publicly under investigation by the FBI while he served on the Judiciary Committee, which had oversight? Now, I'm sure you're going to say, he was not yet indicted, but...
Yes, he was not yet indicted. So the threshold is the threshold. And let me say that I stood against the expulsion of Representative Santos because had not been convicted, you understand. The thresholds have not been crossed. So you have to respect the historical precedent that has been long established in this body. And Representative McIver has had sufficient time to withdraw herself from committee participation. She has failed to do so, and thus the resolution that I introduced yesterday is quite in order. The recognition of that resolution in today's committee markup is also well in order. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman
yield back
yields.
to the gentleman from Mississippi.
I yield my remaining time back.
Gentleman yields. Hearing no objection to the request, the unanimous consent, the item will be entered into the record. Mr. Ranking Member, I think you said you had no closing statement. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
You are recognized.
Thank you. I would move for the committee to subpoena Secretary Kristi Noem to answer to the committee for preventing members of this committee from conducting our statutorily and constitutionally authorized oversight responsibilities. In particular, Secretary Noem's department denied me access to an ICE facility that was being used to house illegal immigrants. The Section 527 of the Appropriations Law of 2024 makes it very clear that members of Congress have the statutory right to show up unannounced and conduct oversight over detention facilities, Department of Homeland Security facilities that are, quote, being used to detain or house illegal immigrants. When I sent advance notice and a request to observe this facility, I was denied, even though subsequently the Deputy Field Director of the New York Field Office acknowledged that there were immigrants who were being housed there for 2 nights or more, which falls squarely in the plain language of the statute. I have led a letter with some of my colleagues asking Secretary Noem to answer it. Secretary Noem has not responded. And given that this is all of Congress's constitutional authority to conduct oversight, I would assume that my Republican colleagues also believe that the laws passed by this body requiring us to do our constitutional duty of oversight should be adhered to by any administration, even if it happens to be a Republican administration. I would assume that my Republican colleagues would also be concerned about us being denied our ability to conduct oversight pursuant to the law under any administration. And I would assume that my Republican colleagues would also want answers from Secretary Noem as to why she is denying access to me and others that flies in the face of the plain reading of the statute. And so I would move to subpoena Secretary Noem to appear in front of this committee to answer those questions.
Committee will suspend. Can't, let me just sneak. The committee will come to order pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11. The gentleman's motion is only valid in the setting of a hearing, not a business meeting, where the chair controls the agenda. And I encourage the gentleman, if he wishes to make such a motion, he do so at our next hearing.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I encourage you to join in the request for Secretary Noem to appear and answer questions that are pertinent to all members of Congress, not just Democrats. And I thank you.
You are, the gentleman yields. Mr. Ranking Member, you wish to be?
Yes.
You're recognized.
I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter sent by Ranking Member Raskin, Jayapal, Correa, and myself objecting to members of Congress not being able to perform their oversight duties at ICE facilities.
Without objection, so ordered. And did you want to make any closing comments, Mr.?
No,
I'm going to say a few words
Yeah.
since it's potentially my last. And I don't know if you want me to do that before we get into the closing part of the hearing. Is that all right with you?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. This stands a good chance of being my last hearing as chair of the committee. And it's a little emotional for me. I've lived a lot of different lives. I spent 9 years as an infantry officer and then went to medical school and served as a medical officer in the Army. And when I was a medical officer in the Army, I missed being an infantryman. And then I left the medical corps and I became a practicing physician, started a healthcare company. Then I became a state senator, and I missed being a doctor seeing patients. Then I ran for Congress and got up here and kind of missed the state Senate. It's funny, in my case, and I don't know if this is the case for everybody, we've all had different lives, but I've missed pretty much every job I've ever had. And I will deeply miss this one, and I will miss the committee. A lot of people see the tension in this room or on the floor, and they think that Democrats and Republicans just despise one another. We don't. What's happened is interesting in our country. Our ideologies have diverged. They have, and it's. I don't know how we deal with that as a country, but that divergence is what you're seeing. We're all Americans on this committee. We all took the same oath. We all love the country. It's just our ideologies about how to run it and the kind of country we want to be tomorrow, respective of today and our past, is different. But there's still some overlap, like canines. We had some great bipartisan work today about dogs. And that makes sense, right? I mean, everybody loves dogs. But anyway, I will tell you and I will say I want to thank the staff of both sides of the aisle and the members of both sides of the aisle for working together, sometimes disagreeing, sometimes agreeing, but that's what's been going on since 1776 when they argued to write the original documents. And it will continue tomorrow when I'm gone. Douglas MacArthur was the commanding general forces in Korea, and he disobeyed an order of the president. And the president fired him. President Truman rightly fired one of America's iconic military leaders to won the Battle of the Pacific, rebuilt Japan after the war. And he was relieved by, and the guy who took his job was a guy named Wainwright, General Wainwright. And Wainwright was on the Missouri with MacArthur at the signing of the Japanese surrender, was at Bataan and took over Bataan when MacArthur left Bataan. So they had known each other for decades. And when MacArthur left, Wainwright said the following to his command. He said, if you take your fist and stick it in a bucket of water and pull it out, the hole that's left behind is how much you'll be remembered when you're gone. And I accept that to be true. But I will tell you that I've enjoyed being with you, and I wish each of you the very best. And whoever takes my place, I hope he'll let each of you talk a little extra than 5 minutes and do so fairly. So, thank you. Without objection, the staff is authorized to make any required technical or conforming changes to reflect the actions of the committee. This concludes the consideration of the bills noticed by the committee for today.
Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Clause 2L of Rule 11, I request that members have 2 calendar days to file with the clerk of the committee supplemental, additional, or minority views on the measures order reported by the committee today.
So ordered. There being no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.